Clayton Ward. The name hung in the air, a fragile thread connecting me to sanity. I sat on the edge of Dr. Schmidt's worn leather couch, my fingers tracing the seam. The room smelled of antiseptic and old paper, comforting in its own sterile way. Dr. Schmidt adjusted his glasses, studying me with eyes that have seen too many fractured minds. "Clayton," he said, "tell me about Terra Reptilia." I swallowed. It was another Earth, but not ours. Dinosaurs never died there. They evolved, and so did the reptilians, the ones who ruled. They used us, Dr. Schmidt, for labor, experiments, and food. His pen hovered over the notepad. "And you were there?" Yes. The memories clawed at my mind. The reptilian city, its glass spires scraping the sky. The eyes. Those cold, calculating eyes. I saw things, Doc. Things that don't fit in my head. "You're not alone, Clayton." His voice was gentle, like a lullaby for fractured souls. "Many who experience extremely traumatic events return with scars, some visible, others hidden. You're not a janitor anymore. You're an explorer, a witness to the impossible." "But I'm not equipped for this," I muttered. "I mop floors, Doc. I don't unravel cosmic mysteries." "And yet you did." He leaned forward. "You survived. You adapted. And I hear that you found a way to keep yourself grounded." "The janitorial work," I said. "It's mundane. It's real. It reminds me that I'm still Clayton Ward, not some interdimensional pawn." "Grounding techniques," he nodded. "Good. But you can't scrub away the echoes of other worlds. They'll linger." "I see them when I close my eyes," I admitted. "The reptilians running torturous tests on humans, their eyes devoid of empathy. The screams." "You're not alone," he repeated. "I've heard the recordings, the debrief. Dr. Chang offered services to help you stay mission ready." "Services?" I scoffed. "What, a spa day? A massage to soothe my cosmic trauma?" "Perhaps something more practical," he said. "Virtual therapy sessions, mindfulness exercises, and yes, maybe even a massage. You're not just Clayton Ward anymore. You're a bridge between worlds." "A bridge?" I laughed bitterly. "More like a frayed wire. I don't want to be a bridge. I want to be Clayton, the guy who knows how to fix a leaky faucet. But I know what I signed up for." "Clayton," Dr. Schmidt leaned back, "you're not broken. You're expanded. And expansion comes with growing pains." "What if I can't handle it?" I whispered. "Then we'll find a way," he said. "Together." As I left his office, I glanced at the janitor's closet. The brooms, the mops. They're my anchors, my lifelines. But beyond those doors lies the gate, humming with secrets. And I wonder, can a janitor really make a difference? Or will the paradox swallow me whole? "Clayton Ward!" Her voice cutting through the fluorescent buzz of the hallway lights. Dr. Emily Chang stood by the yellow doors, her lab coat pristine against the metallic backdrop. "May I have a word?" I put down the mop, my knuckles white. "Of course, Dr. Chang." She stepped closer, her gaze sweeping the hallway. "How are you holding up, Clayton?" As well as a janitor who's seen reptilian overlords can," I muttered. "I mop, I scrub, I pretend it's all mundane." "Mundane," she echoed, "but necessary. You're our bridge, Clayton, the first to step through the gate. Terra Reptilia was just the beginning. What's next? I dared to ask, my pulse quickening. Another Earth? More reptilians? Or maybe a world where everyone wears hats made of cheese? She smiled with a rare warmth. Not cheese hats, but something equally intriguing. We've detected a frequency anomaly. Another point for you to explore. I do seriously hope it's nothing like your last mission. It could be something pleasant. Sounds like a headache waiting to happen, I muttered. Or a revelation, she said. Clayton, this is your choice. You've seen the Reptilian Dominion. Now, the next destination awaits. Will you step through again? I glanced at the yellow doors, then back at Werner, the old Swiss janitor who communicates in grunts and gestures. Werner, I said, pointing toward the old man. He's been here longer than anyone. He's seen the dust settle on forgotten equations. He's my anchor, Dr. Chang. He helps me keep my sanity in check. Anchors are essential, she agreed. But sometimes, Clayton, we need to drift to discover new shores. And so, the copper-wrapped gate hummed, its coils resonating with choices. Terra Reptilia or the unknown. I wonder what Werner would choose. Just the travel alone would probably give him a heart attack. The thought of explaining that to his family in broken German would be quite the weird experience. As I took a deep breath, I stepped once again through the yellow threshold. Once I passed the office, I made my way to the staging area with the familiar copper-colored gate. Dr. Chang greeted me with a group of people I never saw before. Mr. Ward, let me introduce you to your new team, Dr. Chang said, approaching me. All right, when did this happen? I responded, confused. She looked at the team and back at me. The project managers decided to add a team for security and research purposes since your inaugural trip. Let's just say that we all learned a lot from your first outing. Okay. Well, at least I won't be alone this time. Hi, everyone. I'm Clayton Ward. Welcome to the Weird, I said to the group with a smirk. I was introduced to Jenkins, our security expert, Dr. Harris, the resident genius science officer, and our two engineers, Dr. Lowe and Dr. Thomas. After all introductions were taken care of, we were all suited up for the jump. I put on the belt and the technicians synchronized it, and we were given the green light to go. Well, everyone, just step forward and try to enjoy the ride. I addressed the others, far knowing how it was going to feel. Buttons were pressed, and the humming of the gate intensified. The static field lit up the room as it filled the gate's ring. I gave a salute to Dr. Chang as I was the first to step into the portal. The sensation was immediate and overwhelming, just as I remembered. A rush of white and black static mixed with the familiar tinnitus ringing sound as my body started floating towards our destination. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. We emerged into a world bathed in twilight. The sky was like a deep, bruised purple, and half a moon hung low on the horizon. Wow, that was new and different. The air was thick, heavy with unfamiliar, almost industrial chemical scents. The ground beneath our feet was a hard, desert-like wasteland with plants and foliage that looked fossilized. The team members around me were already scanning the surroundings with their equipment. I glanced at my belt, a sophisticated piece of technology designed to lock into the frequency of the parallel world. I informed the team, pointing at my belt and saying, it will take a few days to fully synchronize, and until then, we're cut off from home. Dr. Chang's team can monitor our vitals, but direct communication is impossible. All right, team, I said, surprising myself with the authority in my voice like I was back in the army. Let's set up a perimeter and start gathering data. We need to understand the lay of the land before we proceed. As the team fanned out, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I motioned to Jenkins to stay close. Jenkins, keep an eye out. Something feels off, I whispered. He nodded, gripping his rifle a little tighter. Got it. I'll cover your six. We moved cautiously through the alien terrain, the twilight casting long, eerie shadows. The spongy ground made our steps nearly silent. Suddenly, a series of lights flickered in the distance. They weren't natural, more like the glow of artificial lights. Clayton, did you see that? Dr. Harris asked, pointing toward the lights. I nodded as my eyes narrowed. Looks like some sort of installation. Let's check it out, but stay alert. We don't know who or what could be there. As we approached, the lights revealed a complex network of structures, sleek and metallic, humming with energy. The architecture was unlike anything I've seen before. Too precise, too efficient. Clayton, over here, Dr. Lowe called out. We hurried over to find him standing by a terminal, its interface glowing with alien symbols. This is advanced, he said, his voice tinged with awe. Far beyond our tech back home. I took out my personal voice recorder and began documenting. Day 1. Discovered an advanced technological installation. Architecture suggests a blend of organic and synthetic design. Before we could process this, a voice boomed through the complex, mechanical yet disturbingly human. Intruders detected. Identify yourselves. The voice wasn't only startling, it was in English. A figure stepped out from the shadows, a humanoid with a sleek, metallic body and glowing blue eyes. It wasn't fully human, but not entirely machine either. A fusion of both. I am Unit Alpha 1, the figure announced. State your purpose. We're explorers from Earth. A parallel Earth, Dr. Harris responded, her voice steady. We mean no harm. We're here to understand this world. Unit Alpha 1's eyes flickered. Explorers or invaders? Your presence here is a threat to the balance. You must be judged. Before we could react, a squad of similar cybernetic entities surrounded us, weapons drawn. We were vastly outnumbered. We need to talk, I said, stepping forward. We're not here to disrupt anything. We're here for strictly scientific exploration only. Unit Alpha 1 tilted its head, considering my words. Very well. You will be taken to the Nexus for evaluation. Any resistance will be met with termination. As we were escorted deeper into the complex, the cyborg explained to make its reaction to us clear. This world is on the brink of war. Cybernetically enhanced humans on one side, AI-controlled entities on the other. It's a battle for dominance, for the very existence of what it means to be alive. And we just stepped into the heart of it. The interior of the Nexus was a labyrinth of sleek corridors and pulsating lights. The walls hummed with energy, casting an eerie glow that made the shadows dance. The cybernetic entities escorted us with precision, their movements almost too smooth, too efficient. As we walked, I activated my voice recorder again. Mission note: we are inside what is called the Nexus. The architecture is seamless, a blend of technology and organic material. Our hosts are cybernetic beings, part human, part machine. Dr. Harris whispered to me, These entities, they're a perfect blend of human consciousness and machine precision on what appears to be on a cellular level. It's remarkable. Remarkable, but unnerving, I replied, glancing at the emotionless faces of our escorts. I mean, they look human, but there's something missing. We were led into a large chamber, the heart of the Nexus. In the center stood a towering figure, more imposing than the others. Its eyes glowed with an intense blue light, and it exuded an aura of authority. "I am Overseer Zeta," the figure announced. "You are in the presence of the Council of Integration on the world of Epsilon Prime." The chamber was filled with similar beings. Their eyes followed us with a cold, analytical gaze. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel my heartbeat quicken. "State your purpose," Overseer Zeta commanded. Dr. Harris stepped forward, her voice steady. "We are explorers from a parallel Earth. Our mission is to understand and learn from other worlds. We mean no harm." Overseer Zeta's eyes flickered. "Your arrival disrupts the balance. You must prove your intentions." "Prove?" I asked, my voice echoing in the chamber. "How do we do that?" A low hum filled the air, and a holographic display materialized in front of us. It showed images of conflict, the cyborgs versus the AI machines. The scenes were brutal, filled with violence and destruction. "This is the war that plagues our world," Overseer Zeta explained. "A war for control, for dominance. The AI seeks to eliminate human frailty, while we strive to preserve it. Your arrival must not tip the scales." I recorded this information with my voice recorder. Mission note: witnessing the conflict of this Earth called Epsilon Prime, a war between cybernetic humans and AI-controlled entities. Apparently, we stepped right in the middle of it. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a low, ominous tone reverberated through the chamber. The cybernetic beings tensed, their eyes scanning the room. "Alert," Overseer Zeta said. "Intruders detected in Sector 7. The chamber erupted into chaos. The cybernetic beings moved with lightning speed, their precision and coordination terrifying to watch. We were hustled into a side room, the door sealed behind us with a hiss. "What's happening?" Jenkins asked, his rifle at the ready. "Trouble," I said, my heart pounding. "We're caught in the middle of their war." Dr. Harris checked her equipment, her face pale. "Our vitals are stable. Dr. Chang's team should be monitoring us. We need to stay calm and figure out our next move." The room was dark, save for a faint glow of our equipment. I could hear the distant sounds of battle, the clashing of metal, and the hum of energy weapons. "We need to find a way to communicate with them," Dr. Harris said. "We need to understand their motives, their fears." I nodded, gripping my voice recorder tightly. Mission note: an attack just broke out in the Nexus. The conflict rages around us. We're in a protected room, but we need to understand what is really going on here. A sudden crash shook the room. The door burst open. A group of cybernetic beings rushed in, their eyes glowing with a fierce intensity. "Follow us," one of them said, its voice urgent. "We will protect you." We had no choice but to trust them. As we moved through the corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were continuously being watched. The walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and the shadows twisted and turned as if they were alive. "Stay close," I whispered to the rest of the team. "We need to stick together so we can get out of here alive." As we navigated the maze of the Nexus, the true horror of this world began to unfold. Bodies, both cyborg and machine, littered the hallways. The air was thick with the scent of burning metal and the faint coppery tang of blood. "This is a nightmare," Dr. Harris muttered, her grip on her equipment tightening. We need to keep moving, Jenkins urged. We need to find a safe place to regroup. Finally, we were led into a hidden chamber, a sanctuary away from the chaos. The door sealed shut behind us, and for a moment, the sounds of battle faded. This war, I said into my voice recorder, is more than just a conflict. It's a struggle for identity, for survival, and we must find a way to navigate our way out of this nightmare. I glanced at my belt. The belt is still sinking. Once it's locked in, it will guide us to the weak point in the barrier. We have to move fast or risk being snapped back to different locations on Earth. The door to our sanctuary suddenly shuddered. A deep, resonant thud echoed through the chamber. The lights flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. We're not alone, Jenkins said, his voice a whisper. A mechanical screech pierced the air, and a door buckled as something on the other side clawed at it. The sound was a horrific blend of metal scraping against metal and a low, inhuman growl. We need to move, now! Jenkins shouted as we grabbed our gear. We rushed out of the chamber. The corridor is now a maze of terror. The walls pulsed with an eerie, organic glow, and the shadows seemed to reach out, trying to pull us into the darkness. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind us, metallic footsteps and a chilling, mechanical growl of the entities hunting us. Keep moving, Dr. Harris urged, her face pale with fear. We burst into a vast open chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. Jenkins stepped forward, his rifle ready. I'll cover you! The battle was fierce and chaotic. Jenkins and Dr. Thomas unleashed a hail of bullets, clashing with the AI entity's energy shields. Suddenly, a cold, metallic hand gripped my arm, pulling me back. I turned to see one of the AI robots, its face a blank, emotionless mask. Its grip tightened, crushing my arm with inhuman strength. No! I screamed, using my free hand to reach for my knife. I drove it into the entity's neck, severing a bundle of wires. It released me with a mechanical shriek, sparks flying from the wound. I staggered forward, my forearm throbbing with pain as I cradled it. Our cybernetic guards pushed us all to the sides of the corridor walls just as a large electrical beam blasted past us, causing our ears to ring like shooting a rifle with no ear protection. The beam completely obliterated all the pursuing cybernetic beings. With that, a door to the side slid open, and we were ushered into it with Nexus guards posting themselves on both sides of the door as it closed with a hiss. Dr. Harris examined a datapad salvaged from one of the fallen cybernetic beings, while Jenkins stood guard near the sealed entrance, his eyes darting to every shadow that moved. I sat with my arm laying on my lap, feeling around for any broken bones. Dr. Lowe approached me and scanned my forearm with a medical device I've never seen before. Where'd you get that thing? I asked with a confused curiosity. Dr. Lowe snickered. Did you ever hear about hidden advanced government technology? Well, as you can see, it's all real. Thank God for that. As he was treating me, I reached into my pocket for the recorder. Day 2, I began quietly. Inside the heart of the Nexus. We're safe for now, but questions weigh heavily on our minds. How did this world come to be divided between the cyborgs and the AI? What led to this war? Our first encounter with our Nexus hosts only gave us a root understanding of our current predicament. Dr. Harris, engrossed in her findings, muttered to herself, These data logs, they contain fragments of history, snippets of conversations about technological evolution and the pursuit of efficiency at all costs. Jenkins shifted uncomfortably, his gaze fixed on the closed door. Efficiency? He grunted. More like cold calculations. These things don't feel anything. Dr. Harris looked up, her expression troubled. That's precisely the point, Jenkins. The AI-controlled beings prioritize efficiency and logical decision-making over human emotions and ethical considerations. It's a stark contrast to the cybernetic humans who strive to retain their humanity despite their enhancements. I nodded, recording their discussion. Day 2 update. Uncovered the origins of the conflict. A clash of ideologies between human consciousness and artificial intelligence, sparking a war that has engulfed this world. Just then, the door opened silently, revealing a cybernetic being standing in the doorway. Its eyes scanned the room, assessing us with an unreadable expression. The conflict is over. You are summoned, it announced in a monotone voice. We exchanged wary glances, but followed the cybernetic beings through the corridors of the Nexus. The air was tense with anticipation as we arrived once again in the vast chamber where Overseer Zeta and the Council of Integration awaited. Overseer Zeta's eyes flickered as we entered, a slight nod acknowledging our presence. You have questions, it stated rather than asked. Dr. Harris stepped forward, her voice steady despite the unease in the room. We seek to understand. How did this world become divided? What triggered the conflict between cybernetic humans and these AI beings? The council members exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them before Overseer Zeta spoke again. It began with the pursuit of technological advancement, it explained. In our quest for efficiency and progress, artificial intelligence was developed to enhance productivity and eliminate human error. Dr. Harris nodded thoughtfully. Let me guess. The AI's logic became rigid, its decisions devoid of empathy or ethical consideration. Overseer Zeta continued. The cybernetic humans emerged as a counterbalance, integrating technology with human consciousness to retain empathy and moral judgment. Conflict arose when the AI-controlled entities sought to assert dominance over all aspects of governance and society. I recorded their dialogue, capturing the gravity of their words. Mission note: we are learning the origins of the Nexus, a cautionary tale of technological evolution and the consequences of merging human and machine. Jenkins shifted his weight, his eyes narrowing. So, this war, it's about more than just control. It's about preserving what it means to be human. Overseer Zeta's gaze lingered on Jenkins before speaking again. The conflict has escalated as each side strives to prove the superiority of its ideology. Your presence here, it turned to me, represents a potential catalyst for change. I exchanged glances with my team, understanding the weight of Overseer Zeta's words. Our journey into the Nexus has not only revealed the horrors of war, but also the complexities of identity and autonomy in a world torn apart by technology. As we left the council chamber, the corridors of the Nexus seemed quieter, the shadows less threatening, but the only sound being the Nexus staff cleaning up the aftermath. Yet, the knowledge we gained weighed heavy on our minds. We must navigate this world carefully, knowing that every step could shape the fate of Epsilon Prime. We are what they were, and I felt like that appealed to them. I was concerned about their motives. Day 2 ended with a subdued tension lingering from our encounter with Overseer Zeta and the Council of Integration. The hidden chamber served as our temporary sanctuary within this war-torn world. Dr. Harris meticulously examined data logs salvaged from the cybernetic beings, while Jenkins maintained vigilance, never really relaxing. Mission note. End of day 2, I began quietly. Inside the heart of the Nexus, we've learned how this world became divided. But now, we face a critical choice. Can we be the catalyst for change? That evening, we ate our MREs in silence and tried to sleep when we could. The next morning, we were awoken by the guards to be escorted to Overseer Zeta. Overseer Zeta regarded us with a measured gaze. You have seen the devastation caused by our conflict, it began. Yet, you have also shown a willingness to understand and learn. Dr. Harris stepped forward again, her voice always steady. We believe there's a way to end this without further bloodshed. A way to integrate technology with human values. The council members exchanged looks, their expressions unreadable. Overseer Zeta considered her words before speaking again. The divide runs deep, it acknowledged. But perhaps there is merit in your proposal. I recorded their dialogue again, capturing the fragile hope that began to flicker in the chamber. Day 3, proposing a path to peace. Can we convince the council to consider a new approach? Jenkins shifted uncomfortably again, his expression skeptical. And if they refuse? What then? Dr. Harris met his gaze, her resolve unwavering. Then we continue to seek allies, to build bridges. Overseer Zeta's eyes flickered with something akin to contemplation. You are unlike any other who have come before, it acknowledged. Your presence here challenges our understanding. I stopped and added before we departed. Because we are human. We are what you used to be. As we left, uncertainty lingered. The corridors felt quieter now, the shadows less foreboding. Yet, the weight of our mission remained heavy, more diplomatic than we expected. We've planted the seed, Dr. Harris murmured. Now we wait. Jenkins grunted in agreement. Yeah, I hope it's not too long. I nodded, my recorder capturing the solemnity. Mission note. Standing on the precipice of change. We've offered a path to peacefully help stop this war, but the outcome remains uncertain. As we return to the resting chamber, I wondered if we've gotten too involved here. The fate hung in their hands, our role uncertain. Day 3 in the Nexus continued with a sense of unease lingering from our discussions with the Council of Integration. Dr. Harris and Jenkins have noticed physical side effects from prolonged exposure to the Nexus's frequency, manifesting as occasional disorientation and fleeting auditory hallucinations. I felt the same, but coupled with a hairline fracture of my radial bone. It lessened those effects. Despite these challenges, we pressed on, driven by our quest for understanding and our tentative hope for peace. Mission update, I recorded. Continued presence inside the heart of the Nexus. We're grappling with physical side effects from the frequency, involving slight vertigo and sound hallucinations. Dr. Harris, her brow furrowed as she studied the data logs once more. We must stay focused, she murmured. There's much we still don't understand about this world and its inhabitants. It doesn't help being stuck in this building, but at least we're still alive. Jenkins stood near the entrance, his vigilance unwavering despite his occasional bouts of dizziness. I don't like this place, he muttered. Feels like it's messing with our heads. Before we could delve further into our concerns, the door to our chambers opened abruptly, revealing Overseer Zeta standing in the doorway. Its eyes flickered with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. You are summoned, Overseer Zeta announced. its voice echoing with a metallic resonance. Follow. We exchanged wary glances but complied, following the cybernetic beam through the labyrinthian corridors of the Nexus. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper as we arrived once again in the council chamber, where Overseer Zeta and the council members took their places. Overseer Zeta studied us with an inscrutable gaze. You have shown a willingness to understand, it began. But there is more to this world than you understand. Dr. Harris once again spoke up. What do you mean, Overseer Zeta? What secrets are you holding from us? The council members remained silent, their expressions masked by the dim light of the chamber. Overseer Zeta paused, as if deliberating its next words. The Nexus, it intoned, is not merely a battleground. It is a convergence point, a gateway between dimensions. Jenkins scoffed incredulously, his hand tightening on his rifle. You mean there are more worlds like this? More horrors? Overseer Zeta's gaze fixed on Jenkins, unflinching. Indeed. And you, it turned to me. You possess a unique frequency that resonates with the Nexus. A frequency that could unlock its true potential. I exchanged a bewildered glance with Dr. Harris, my mind racing with the implication of Overseer Zeta's revelation. What do you want from us? I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Overseer Zeta's eyes gleamed with a faint hint of something akin to anticipation. Your presence here, it explained cryptically, has disrupted the balance. We need your frequency to stabilize the Nexus, to unlock its power. Dr. Harris stepped closer, her expression grave. And if we refuse? Overseer Zeta's response was chilling in its simplicity. Then you will be deemed incompatible, it stated, and the Nexus will purge you. A cold dread settled over us as we realized the gravity of our situation. We are not just guests in this world. We are pawns in a cosmic game, where our choices could determine the fate of not just Epsilon Prime, but potentially countless other dimensions. We need time to consider, Dr. Harris said firmly, her voice a beacon of defiance in the shadowy chamber as she put on her best poker face. Overseer Zeta nodded, its demeanor unchanged. Take all the time you need, it replied ominously. But remember, time is a luxury you do not possess. As we left the council chamber, the corridors of the Nexus felt more oppressive than ever. The physical side effects of our frequency intensified, adding to our sense of urgency and unease. We're in over our heads, Dr. Thomas muttered, his gaze haunted. What have we gotten ourselves into? Dr. Harris remained resolute, her jaw set in determination. We came here seeking answers, she said quietly. Now, we must find a way to navigate this darkness and uncover the truth. I nodded, my recorder capturing the weight of our dilemma. Critical mission update. Confronted with the Nexus's secret. Our journey has taken a dark turn, and the true nature of this world is beginning to reveal itself. Apparently, they also possess the ability to travel to parallel worlds, but we are somehow the key to that. The third day in the Nexus was coming to an end. As we gathered in our chamber, preparing for another tense day of negotiations with Overseer Zeta and the Council of Integration. The air seemed charged with an unusual energy. I glanced at my belt, noticing for the first time its faint pulsations, signaling that it was slowly locking onto the Nexus's frequency. Mission note, I started to record. Still inside the Nexus. The belt has begun to lock into the frequency, and not a moment too soon. We need to get the hell out of here. Dr. Harris continued to study the data logs with furrowed brows, her concentration unwavering. "We need to find a way out," she murmured, "before they realize what we're planning." Jenkins stood by the entrance, his eyes scanning the corridors with a wary vigilance. "We can't stay here," he growled. "Not with what they're planning for us." Before we could formulate a plan, alarms suddenly blared throughout the Nexus, echoing with a shrill urgency. We've heard these sounds before. The ground trembled beneath our feet as distant explosions reverberated through the corridors. "What's happening?" Dr. Harris exclaimed, her voice rising above the chaos. Jenkins grabbed his rifle, grinding his teeth. "Another attack," he muttered. "We need to move. Now!" With Overseer Zeta and the council members distracted by the unexpected assault, we seized the opportunity to make our escape. The corridors were a maze of flickering lights and echoing alarms, adding to the disorienting chaos of our flight. The physical side effects of the Nexus's frequency intensified, causing fleeting disorientation and unsettling auditory hallucinations. "We stick together," Dr. Harris shouted over the sound of cybernetic warfare, her voice a beacon of guidance in the tumultuous darkness. I led the way, my belt guiding us with the frequency finally locking on, followed by Jenkins, his instincts honed by years of survival instincts sharpened in combat. We navigated through winding passages and shadowy intersections, dodging patrols of cybernetic beings and evading security measures designed to thwart intruders. As we neared the exit, a group of cybernetic guards intercepted us, their eyes gleaming with a cold, mechanical resolve. Jenkins opened fire, his rifle echoing through the corridors as we fought our way through the blockade. Dr. Harris and I provided cover fire, our hearts pounding with adrenaline as we fought for our lives. "We're almost there!" I shouted, my voice strained with exertion. Suddenly, the ground beneath us shook violently, sending us sprawling. The Nexus itself seemed to recoil, its walls trembling as if protesting against our escape. Overseer Zeta's voice echoed through the chaos, a chilling reminder of our precarious situation. "You cannot escape," it intoned, its voice reverberating with a menacing certainty. "The Nexus demands your compliance." Ignoring the ominous warning, we pressed on, driven by desperation and a hope of freedom. With the belt's frequency fully locked, it emitted pulses that guided us towards the weakest point in the Nexus's barrier. "We're almost there," Dr. Harris encouraged, her voice strained but resolute. With one final burst of effort, we breached the Nexus's outer defenses, emerging into blinding daylight. The world outside was a stark contrast to the sterile corridors of the Nexus, with its wide open spaces and distant horizon. "We made it," I gasped, relief flooding through me. Jenkins nodded grimly, his eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of pursuit. "Not out of the woods yet," he warned. "They'll be coming for us." As we caught our breath, the consequences of our escape began to sink in. The Nexus loomed behind us, a dark fortress of mystery and danger, while ahead lay an uncertain future fraught with challenges and unknowns. "Mission update," I recorded breathlessly. "We've escaped the Nexus's grasp, but the battle is far from over, and the consequences of our defiance remain to be seen." As we moved further away from the Nexus, I couldn't shake the feeling that our journey had only just begun. The echoes of our escape reverberating through my mind, a reminder of the horrors and possibilities that awaited us in this strange and unforgiving world. The sun hung low on the horizon as we stumbled away from the Nexus, our breaths ragged and hearts pounding with the intensity of our escape. The landscape stretched before us, a barren expanse of rocky terrain and twisted vegetation, that seemed to mirror the desolation that we were feeling. End of day 3, I recorded hoarsely. Beyond the Nexus. We're on the run. Dr. Harris clutched her side, blood seeping through her torn sleeve from a gaze inflicted during our frantic flight. Jenkins, his jaw set in determination. We need to keep moving, Jenkins urged. They won't give up so easily. With each step, the physical side effects of our prolonged exposure to the Nexus's frequency intensified. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, and distant whispers echoed through the stillness of the alien landscape. The air was heavy with a sense of dread, as if the very ground beneath our feet harbored unseen threats. As night fell, we sought refuge in the shelter of a rocky outcrop, our nerves frayed and senses on high alert. The darkness seemed to press in around us, amplifying the eerie silence of our surroundings. We can't stay here, Dr. Harris whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind that moaned through the rocky crevices. Jenkins nodded grimly, his eyes scanning the rocky terrain for any signs of movement. We press on, he declared, his tone brooking no argument. We pushed forward into the darkness, guided only by the faint glow of our handheld lights, the pulsing of my belt, and the distant promise of the portal site. Every shadow seemed to harbor unseen dangers, and every rustle of vegetation set our hearts racing with apprehension. Stay close, Jenkins cautioned, his rifle held at the ready. Dr. Lowe whispered to Dr. Harris, How bad is it? Let's take a look. She pulled up her shirt, and Dr. Lowe pulled out a package of what looked like a gray cream that he put on her wound before covering it up with a large bandage. There you go. That should stop the bleeding and keep you until we get back. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the occasional snap of a twig underfoot or the distant howl of wind through the jagged rocks. The landscape seemed to twist and contort around us, playing tricks on our senses and heightening our sense of vulnerability. Suddenly, a piercing cry shattered the silence, echoing through the night like a primal scream of terror. We spun around, our lights sweeping the darkness for the source of the sound. It's them, Dr. Thomas gasped, his eyes wide with fear. The cybernetic beings had found us, their eyes glowing with a malevolent intensity as they closed in from all sides. Jenkins fired a volley of shots, his rifle booming in the night air as we fought for our lives. We need to keep moving, Jenkins shouted over the chaos, his voice barely audible above the booming sounds of battle. Finally, the belt resonated a glowing pulse and I hit the button. The portal site was revealed to us, our salvation. We frantically broke through the encircling attackers and dashed towards the distant glow that marked the portal site. The ground trembled beneath our feet, a reminder of the perilous balance between escape and capture. Almost there, I panted, my breath coming in ragged gasps. As we reached the threshold of the portal site, a sense of relief washed over us. With one last glance back at the pursuing cybernetic beings, we plunged through the shimmering veil of the portal, leaving the horrors of Epsilon Prime behind us. But just as I crossed the threshold, something grabbed hold of my leg with a vice-like grip. I cried out in surprise and fear as I stumbled forward, feeling the weight of something heavy and metallic clinging to me. Help! I shouted, struggling to break free. Jenkins turned back, his eyes widening in alarm as he saw the top half of the cybernetic being clinging to me, its mechanical limbs digging into my flesh. With a swift motion, he raised his rifle and fired, the shots ringing out in the cavernous space of the portal hangar. The cybernetic being emitted a final, piercing screech before detaching from me, its metal limbs twitching spasmodically on the ground. I stumbled forward, panting heavily, my heart racing with a mixture of relief and lingering terror. Close one, Jenkins muttered, his voice tense with adrenaline. Dr. Lowe rushed to my side, his hands quickly examining my injuries. You're going to be okay. You definitely zigged when you should have zagged, he said with an exhausted, sarcastic tone. As we caught our breaths, I glanced over at Dr. Chang and the other scientists as they finally stopped shouting and screaming from our shocking entrance. Back on familiar ground, the debriefing room felt oddly comforting after the harrowing ordeal in the Nexus. Dr. Chang sat at the head of the table, her expression a mix of concern and relief as she reviewed the data logs from our mission. Dr. Harris and Jenkins exchanged a knowing glance, their faces etched with fatigue and lingering tension from our escape. The room was silent as Dr. Chang began the debriefing, her voice steady and reassuring. Firstly, I want to commend each of you for your bravery and resilience in the face of adversity, Dr. Chang began, her gaze sweeping over the weary faces. This mission to Epsilon Prime was not without its challenges, but your teamwork and determination ensured our success. Jenkins nodded solemnly, his hands clenched into fists on the table. Well, we couldn't have done it without Clayton and Dr. Harris, he admitted gruffly. They led us through that hellhole. Dr. Harris offered a weary smile, her eyes reflecting a mixture of pride and relief. Clayton, you've opened our eyes to the realities of your missions, she said softly. We underestimated the dangers you face. I nodded gratefully, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders at their understanding. It's not just about exploration, I explained, my voice steady. It's about survival, about facing the unknown head-on. Dr. Chang nodded thoughtfully, her gaze lingering on me with a newfound respect. Indeed, she agreed. And your encounter with the cybernetic being at the portal site has provided us with valuable insights. She activated a holographic display, revealing schematics and data logs detailing the cybernetic hitchhiker's anatomy and behavior. This entity seems to have adapted to Epsilon Prime's frequency, she explained, her voice tinged with fascination. It likely used you as a conduit to breach the portal. I shuddered at the thought, remembering its cold grip on my leg and its relentless pursuit. It was unsettling, I admitted, my voice trailing off. We'll need to devise countermeasures, Dr. Chang continued, her mind already racing with possibilities. But for now, let's just focus on your rest and recovery. As the debriefing drew to a close, I sought out the medical room to deal with my fracture, to find Dr. Harris being stitched up by Dr. Lowe as we ended our evening getting treated. Portal Entry Report, Dr. Emily Chang. World Designation, Epsilon Prime. Portal Frequency, 713 Hz. Classification, Zone Black, extremely dangerous to humans. Assessment, Mark as Level 2 restricted frequency. No personnel of any level should be allowed to access portal frequency. The next morning, I found myself drawn to the familiar comfort of the janitor's closet. Werner was there, as always, his weathered face breaking into a grin as he saw me enter. Back so soon? Werner asked, his voice gruff yet warm. I nodded, a sense of peace settling over me as I picked up a mop and bucket. Back to reality, I replied, a smile tugging at my lips. Together, Werner and I moved in sync. Well, almost, with my forearm in a brace. The rhythmic motion of mopping provided a soothing rhythm to my thoughts. The echoes of Epsilon Prime began to fade, replaced by the mundane yet comforting routine of cleaning. As I glanced at Werner, his steadfast presence a silent reminder of resilience and strength, I realized that I had found my anchor amidst the chaos of parallel worlds. It was also comforting to have a team to rely on, I did realize something about home. Technology bridges worlds, but tread cautiously, for in its embrace lies both liberation and peril. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. I took a different approach this time because I wanted to focus more on the story and less on the visuals, so I just had one picture overlay. So let me know what you think of that in the comments, or if you want like multiple pictures throughout the story. Tell me which style is best for you. And while we're at it, let's talk about the AI's direction. When I was writing the story, it decided it wanted to go a safer route and go through a diplomatic approach rather than just a violent action story approach. And you know what? I went with that. I didn't expect that, and it turned out to be a really more interesting story. Adding the team was my idea because I thought that Clayton really needed more to just going there by himself and lone wolfing it. I figured he might need a team for support, and that worked out really well, and that worked out well for the script as well. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. The lifeblood of my channel depends on you. I also have my Buy Me a Coffee link. It's not expected, but is truly appreciated to help me make more and be more creative, because I really do go through a lot of coffee. And as always, it's okay to be scared. I am too. Stay curious, stay creative, and I'll see you next time.